Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our ReWild Long Island webinar Spring 2024 Native Plant Highlight by Kimberly Simmen of KMS Natives. With us today is Kimberly to share her knowledge about key Long Island native plants, their growing habits and values to native pollinators. You'll also get a sneak peek into the ReWild Long Island Spring 2024 plant sale. Kimberly is a certified nursery landscape professional with 20 plus years in the business. In July 2020, during the pandemic, Kimberly opened KMS Native Plants LLC in Lake Grove, procuring plants native to Long Island, the Northeast and North America for her customers. She consults Girl Scout troops, schools, homeowners, landscapers, and gardeners willing to learn about native plants and the importance of biodiversity. Kimberly joined the board of ReWild Long Island in 2021 and serves as Director of Sustainable Horticulture. So without further delay, I'll hand it over to Kimberly.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. As you already heard, I'm Kimberly Simmen. I'm the owner of KMS Native Plants. So tonight I'm going to be highlighting some of the plants that we'll be offering for the spring plant sale. I couldn't go through all of them. I wish I could, but I picked out some of my favorites. So we'll start right now. So here we go. So as most people know, native plants offer a multitude of benefits. They attract beautiful pollinators like butterflies, hummingbirds, and bees. They provide food and shelter for native wildlife, and they're adapted to our local conditions, which require less water and maintenance, but they do need water while they're establishing. And they help create a healthy ecosystem in your backyard. So just right here, we just have a few little pictures. So the pink flower there in the bottom is our Rosa Carolina, which is our pasture rose. And on that is a fantastic longhorn flower beetle. Beetles are also pollinators. A lot of people don't realize this, but it's one of their favorites, that plant. The second picture there is Iris versicolor, which is our blue flag iris. And of course, there's a bumblebee squeezing in there. The nice thing about our native irises is actually their pollinators actually use them. I've never seen them go to a German hybrid. And when I first saw them go to versicolor, I was just so excited. And it's amazing. The third one there is one of my favorites. So that is the great black wasp. She is a fantastic creature. She's usually about 2.5 inches long. And that is her nectaring on a swamp milkweed. And then the last one there is our common yarrow, and that's a little skipper there. I'm not exactly sure which one that is because they're kind of hard to ID, but just great little critters. You see them all summer and they're just lovely. So the days are getting longer and the warmer weather is on the way. So let's talk native plants. We've already talked about the plant sale, which goes live on the 29th for all the public. And then the week before is for our volunteers. So we're going to talk, I was going to do it kind of willy-nilly with things, but I figured I'd make it easier for everybody and put everybody in a category. So I'm going to start with trees, shrubs, and vines. This picture here is one of my favorite trees, and I'm so excited we're able to offer it again this year because it's actually available. And that's our Sassafras albitum, which is our sassafras. And this is its fall color. When I drive home on Pond Path over here in Lake Grove in the fall, this thing is it's like flames. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And everybody stops and they're like, what is this? And we proudly get to say, that's a native tree. So I'm going to start with the Amelanchier canadensis. So serviceberry is a fantastic plant. I'm not going to read all the information there because you can actually see it, but I'm just going to talk about the plant. It's one of our earlier bloomers, which is, it has a lovely white flower as you see on the side there. The other picture you see there is just before it forms its berries. It's just starting to, which I think is absolutely beautiful before the berries come out. It's kind of very, it's almost sci-fi looking. But the little guy up there in the front that's sitting on my finger there, that is our little cellophane bee. And they need early blooming plants, especially now. This year, they came out 2 weeks early. So it's a little nerve-wracking out there for what they're looking for nectar and pollen. Right now, I'm actually very thankful for my Japanese Andromeda because that's been blooming since February. Not a native, but a spectacular plant for early pollinators if you need something just to have out there. And like I said, we believe in responsible ornamentals also. But this is, like I said, this is a great plant. She can actually take partial shade. She'll even grow in deep shade. That's where I kind of have her in my yard. I like to experiment with them. And she's doing well, other than the buck that comes around and has been rubbing on them. She's not eaten by the deer, but like I said, the buck does like to rub his antlers on them because they like that 1.5 to 2 inch caliper, which means that's the thickness of the trunk. It is part of the cedar apple rust. So sometimes your berries might come out a little misshapen or with little orange horns on them because they are host plants together. So they pass them back and forth to each other. I should have put a picture of it up here. I didn't think of that. But there's so many junipers and so many service berries out there that it's just bound to happen. And the cooler the spring and the wetter the spring, the more likely it is to be a bad year for it. They don't usually kill the plants, but on the service berry, they do make some of the berries unedible, which is kind of sad, but it's still supporting pollinators. And she is host plant to over 124 species of Lepidoptera, and that is your moths and your butterflies. And she's native to here. This is a great tree. I can't say enough about this one, and she's so underused. So this is our Carpinus caroliniana. This is our American hornbeam, also known as American musclewood. I'm not as fond about that name as I am about the American hornbeam, but just a spectacular tree. Oh, it's also called the blue beech because it actually looks like a beech tree. They're all in the same family. But she's a small tree and she's an understory tree. So she actually makes a really good street tree if she's just a little further in from the road. She's black walnut tolerant, which a lot of plants are not. And that means that she can actually be planted under black walnut trees and she's not affected by the toxins they put out. Her fall color is just absolutely gorgeous, as you see in the far corner there. Her flowers are even interesting. She's a pollinator and a nectar sauce. The hanging flowers you see there towards the right, just above the butterfly, those are the male flowers. They do have nutlets that are eaten by songbirds. And you don't need a male and a female for this tree. They have male and female parts on the tree. So you will have nutlets once they get to that age where they can bear them. And down in the bottom there, like I said, she's a host plant for many butterflies and moths, but 3 of my favorites, which are the eastern tiger swallowtail, the striped hair streak, and the picture there is the red spotted purple. I don't know how many of you have seen her. I finally saw one last year and now they're starting to come around more, but she eats poop. She does not nectar. It's very rare to find them nectaring. But also this is native to Long Island. Like I said, just a fantastic tree and totally underused. My absolute favorite shrub. So this is Clethra alnifolia, sweet pepper bush. Most of you know this by, some people call her, oh, what's the other common name? Sweet pepper bush and summer sweet. Fantastic plant. When she's in bloom, the scent is unbelievable. It's intoxicatingly sweet, but it's also a little spicy. But she is a great alternative to butterfly bush, which is an invasive plant, especially when she starts seeding herself everywhere. But if you look at the pictures here, on the far left there, we have, so you have a spider wasp, you have a bumblebee, and you have a great black wasp, and they're all vying for the nectar in this plant. The 2 little cuties are on the top there. Those are actually flies. Which are very interesting. They mimic wasps, so their prey doesn't see that. And plus it helps them sneak up on their prey, which are the wasps that actually look like them. Just below that is our silver spotted skipper. You see a lot of them, especially in the summer when it gets really hot. That's when they start coming out. But this is just a great plant. She'll take sun, partial shade, but she will also take deep shade. I have mine, testing mine. I have several of them on the property, but I have several in a dry shade area. And 2 years ago, when we had that horrible drought, I was like, oh no, I killed everybody. I just, when I finally got over there to look in September, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, everybody. And the next year, they came back magnificently. So it was a total experiment that worked for me without even doing it. But they are very adaptable. They do sucker out, and the reason why our native shrubs do this is to provide shelter for birds and small critters. Our shrubby St. John's wort. If you don't have this plant in your sunny garden, you need to get it. Look at the bumblebees, and if you look closely at the picture there, you see tiny carpenter bees. You see little hoverflies, and it's amazing. Just anybody who has this in their garden right now can totally attest for it. Just buzzes. Like when you walk out, all you hear is buzzing. Everybody's just going nuts on this plant. She is technically a shrub, but she's a smaller shrub, and you can actually treat her as a perennial. So you can cut her back in the spring because she does bloom on new wood. So if you do cut her back, you get a lot more flowers, a tidier plant, and like I said, just more flowers for everybody to enjoy. Again, this is another one who's black walnut tolerant. You'll also notice I'm not saying anything about deer resistance. That is because it doesn't exist anymore. The only things right now that are still deer resistant are grasses, sedges, and ferns. So like I said, I no longer say things are deer resistant because it just depends where you are, in what town you are, at what time. But just a great plant. The birds love the seeds. It's also a host plant for the little gray hair streak and several moth species, and she is native to here. Where do you start with this one? One of my other favorites. So Pussy Willow. Pussy Willow Salix discolor is another, she's the earliest of our native shrubs to bloom. I think she blooms before red maple. So she really is the earliest blooming. So if you're looking to feed those early season pollinators, this is the shrub for you. If you look in the bottom picture there, that is actually a queen bumblebee. And when queen bumblebees emerge in the spring, which I just saw one today, I was so excited. She was flying around with her tongue open. She didn't have the time to, when she got to her nectar source, she didn't have the time to get her tongue out. So she was flying around with her tongue out, and I couldn't believe I got that picture. It was absolutely amazing. This is a clay tolerant shrub. You can train it as a tree or you can keep it as a shrub. I prefer my pussy willow as a shrub, so I would cut her back every 3 years or so. They can grow 6 feet a year, so don't be afraid if you do give them that cutback. They do host 20 caterpillar species. There are other salix that actually support more. They're one of the keystone plants, and a keystone plant is a plant that's necessary for another animal to finish its life cycle, like the caterpillars, and for birds. Without these species, like without these keystone plants, birds wouldn't have enough caterpillars to feed their broods. Native to Long Island, and I do have a little note there in the bottom, because it is a pussy willow, do not plant her near sewers, drains, or other water sources, because she will seek them out, and it's not a good thing. The morning cloak there, that's the butterfly. She is our earliest butterfly, and actually one of them flew by today, and actually Beth from ReWild was here today, and I don't know if she saw her, but I was like, there's the morning cloak. I was so excited. But just magnificent creatures, and other salix actually host, I think it's over 300 different caterpillars. So it's a fantastic tree to have. If you don't have moist soil, she is quite adaptable. I didn't get to put it in here because unfortunately we couldn't find it for the sale. But if you need a drier soil willow, you can go with prairie willow. That actually likes a drier soil. Sassafras. So again, like the picture that was shown earlier, her fall color is absolutely amazing, and her flowers are just lovely. The top picture there, they're just about to open. I had a picture of the flowers actually open, but it was too blurry. But it's a delicate looking flower and they're just magnificent. Sun to partial shade, she is an understory. So she does grow under other trees and then they can get actually quite tall. But if you have a young one, you can actually keep her on the shorter side by hedging her. But just a great plant and even more exciting, she is the host plant for the spicebush swallowtail. So that's the little Pokemon creature you see in the bottom there that looks like a snake. That is just before it goes into its mode, before it goes into chrysalis. When it's going to go to chrysalis, it turns orange. Just a magnificent little creature, and that's the butterfly when she emerges. The cool thing about sassafras is they are a polymorphic tree. They have 3 different types of leaves on the tree at the same time, so it's a great way to ID them. In the top one there, you have your mitten. In the middle one there, you have just your basic oblong leaf. And in the bottom one, I don't know what you want to call that shape, kind of almost like a hand, but without being a hand. But it's one of the best ways to ID them along with the scent of them. But just a great tree. If you have the room for them, they do run. That's how they grow. They don't transplant well, so it's really hard to remove them and bring them somewhere else. So if you do have them, let them do their thing and stay in a spot, but you'll be absolutely rewarded. There are male and females of these because apparently there are berries. I've never seen a berry on them, but from what I hear, they go really fast by the birds. But even if you don't have a male or if you don't have a female, they're still spectacular plants. Our native clematis. This is a fantastic plant, especially if you have an area where not much else grows and you're looking for something to just either grow on something or even scramble around as a ground cover. The flowers are very fragrant. They're smaller than the European clematis, as you would see, who have like the giant, they're almost like the size of your face, flowers. It does attract hummingbirds, and it is a pollinator and nectar source. It does bring a lot of the pollinating flies. You'll get your little sweat bees go to them, but just a great plant. Again, black walnut tolerant, so it will grow under black walnut trees. They are usually deer resistant, so I have that in here. I've never heard anybody say that the deer are munching on their clematis, and I haven't seen it, so I put usually in there. She does host several different species of moths and butterflies. Not a lot, but she does do a few, but she is great for pollinators. If you cut her back, you can cut her back in April. You can either keep her a little taller or you can keep her, cut her down to 12 inches, but you can also prune her at any time during the growing season. So if she does get a little out of hand for you, you can go in there and prune her and she's not going to have a problem with it. One of my favorites. So this here is the hummingbird magnet. This is our native Carl honeysuckle. She is just such an amazing plant. Mine bloomed this year. Oh, she went all the way through January. She even made it through one of the first snows we had this year. But just a marvel. She does not have a scent like the invasive ones do, but what she doesn't have in scent, she makes up in beauty and for everybody she supports. She is, oh, I left deer in there. So the deer are eating them. Again, like I said, when it comes to deer, you know, it depends where you are, but apparently they are nibbling on these now. It does have berries in the fall. They're very bright red and the birds absolutely adore them. So on top of the hummingbird and other long-tongued bees, she's magnificent on so many levels. Again, you can give her a good pruning. I actually just pruned, actually I'm going to prune mine tomorrow. I give her a really good haircut this time of year, and then she blooms in May. May and June are her big main months, but she, like I said, she will bloom all the way through November, December, January, depending on the weather. She's just, like I said, she's great. And the little guy in the bottom there, I couldn't believe I got this picture. It must have just emerged because she let me take several pictures. but that is the snowberry clearwing moth. These are the ones that people mistake for hummingbirds, and they're actually moths. And their wings are clear. If you look closely, you can see the leaves actually through her wings. And that's the caterpillar there. They don't do a lot of damage, so it's not a horrible thing to do, have them there. Some people always get nervous, oh, it supports caterpillars. That's what we want them to do. If nothing's eating your plant, you're doing something wrong. But just a lovely plant, great on an arbor, great on a trellis. I have mine growing up a telephone pole. I know some people who have them, they use them as, they train them on a fence so they don't have to look at their neighbors, but just a great plant. Preferably full sun, but it will also take part shade. So now we're going to jump into the perennials. This here is our threadleaf mountain mint, and on there is our common thread-waisted wasp, a great little creature. So I'm going to start with one that's not native to here, but a fantastic plant in the garden. This is false indigo. So false indigo gets these great purple spires. She's in the pea family, so she has that typical pea flower, which is really cool. And great for bumblebees because they can get in there. She has this lovely silver bluey gray foliage. And if you don't want to have her she gets usually about 3 to 4 feet tall with flower. If she gets a little too tall for her, you can actually shape her. The only thing, if you do hedge her that way, you're going to miss out on the really cool black seed pods that show up. Just really a great plant on many levels. But once you have her in one place, make sure that's where you want her because she has a crazy taproot. So she does not like to be moved, but just a spectacular plant. The vase shape, she has a lovely vase shape and all the foliage is mostly at the top. But just a great plant in a spring garden. And there's just a little male bumblebee. Like I said, they love pea plants because they can actually get into them. But that's a little boy, and we know that because of that little white patch on his face. And then up in the top there, that is a pearl crescent. I heard different things on this. Some say that they lay their eggs on these, and other people say no. This one was laying eggs, but I don't know if it's really a host plant unless they're just a little thrown off, but that's something I need to look into more. If anybody knows, let me know. But just a great plant. Chelone glabra, turtlehead, one of the most underused perennials, I think, especially for a very moist area that gets actually occasionally wet. I actually have her in a planter that doesn't have any drainage holes, and she does magnificently in there. Another plant where bumblebees actually need to pry it open to get in. So you're not getting just regular bees in here. The picture on the side, actually, I think this is a video. Hold on. Yay! Let's see if it works. Yay! So this is a bumblebee, and she is trying hard to get in there. As you see, she gets in, just the cutest thing ever. And then she gets in there, she does what she has to do, and she was in here a long time, actually. But if you saw the wasp that was there before she went in, that is actually one of our larger parasitic wasps. She looks large there, but she really isn't that large. It is a host plant to the Baltimore checker spot. I've never seen one in my entire life. So I'm hoping one day I will see one of them. But yeah, the bumblebees are just to sit there and just watch them while she's coming out. Look how cute that is. Just magnificent. And it's just amazing like how they can get it. And if they're not ready for bees yet, I actually have a video, but it was too long. But the bee actually gets very angry and she holds on to it and she gets angry because she can't get in. And also bumblebees and carpenter bees, if they get too aggravated, they'll actually chew a hole in the bottom of the flower and do what is called nectar robbing. If you've ever seen a bumblebee or a carpenter bee do that, it's actually really amusing. But it kind of cheats the flower because it doesn't really get pollinated that way, because basically it's just going in, taking the nectar, and it's not getting the pollen on it. So it doesn't help with pollination that way. Oops, this always happens too with this. There we go. So this one's not native to Long Island, but I just think she's an absolutely spectacular plant, especially for partial shade. and dappled light shade. Just a magnificent plant. This is our fringed bleeding heart. The foliage color alone is just lovely, especially in a shaded area. It's that blue-green. She looks like a fern, but she has these lovely little heart-shaped flowers, just like the Japanese bleeding heart, except for this one is pink and she's an Eastern US native. But just magnificent. I had a video, but for some reason it wouldn't come on here, so we're just stuck with a picture here. But a monarch butterfly actually nectaring on them, and then I also have a bumblebee going crazy getting in one. So they're just a spectacular plant. And again, if you have black walnuts, she's fantastic under them. She does bring in hummingbirds. Like I said, anybody with a long tongue is going to be able to get nectar out of this one. Songbirds eat the seeds, and also ants move them around because they like the coating that's on them. So along like with violas, it's the same thing. The ants move them around because they like the coating on them. But just a spectacular plant mixed with other shade-loving plants. It's just lovely. And she does seed quite readily, so you will have a nice little patch of these when she gets going. And she doesn't get too big either. Her main time to bloom is May, but she does go all the way through October. This is another great one. So this is one that I would consider a living mulch. If you look at the picture in the corner there, what she does is she runs under the soil and she forms this really tight mat. And this is Robin's plantain. She's native to here. There is a cultivar, Lynnhaven carpet, which has larger flowers and larger leaves. Both of them are fantastic. My exciting thing about this one was when I finally got hummingbirds here about 2 years ago, I think I got them. And she was here and my honeysuckle was in full bloom and she wasn't going anywhere near it and I couldn't figure out what she was doing. And finally one day I was able to follow her and she was going to this plant and taking the seed fluff and then flying off with it. So not only did I have a hummingbird, she was making a nest somewhere and she really loved the seed fluff on these. But just absolutely amazing. Like I said, she's also great in a planter, as are most native plants, and they can be left outside. Just great plant. Like I said, she's clay tolerant too, for those of you who live in the areas of Long Island that have clay. It's just a little crazy to me still, but just a great little plant. The rosettes usually are about 6 inches tall, but in flower, she's usually about 12 to 24 inches. But just a great plant. She also brings in a specialist bee, which actually just goes to her. That's not her there, but that's a little sweat bee up in the corner there. But just an adorable plant and an early bloomer. So it's nice to see something, other than just the trees and shrubs that are blooming for us to have a perennial start. But just lovely. She's, if you think about it, she's very fuzzy. So she's actually a good substitute for lamb's ears if you're looking for something native to replace them. Heliopsis helianthoides. This is our false sunflower. And yes, that is a fly on there. Flies are pollinators. Just a great plant. They can get a little tall. They usually top out between 36 to 60 inches. And I know a lot of people are like 60 inches. And most of the time they're not going to get that tall because when you look at a plant's range, like say they say like 24 to 60 inches, that's a ridiculous range. But that means it depends how happy it is. You can also prune these back. This way they don't get as tall if you want to do that also, especially if they're in their favorite moist soil. But just a great plant. The hummingbird absolutely adores this plant. Songbirds eat the seeds, as those who have this plant know that. You get your little goldfinches and everybody in there. It's also great for erosion control because it seeds itself and it does run a bit. But just a great plant. And she comes with aphids. So that's why, a lot of our native plants, they come with their own issues, but who doesn't? But this is really, really cool. The hummingbirds also eat aphids. So I never wash them off or do anything with them, but I just think these ones are really cool. I consider them dancing aphids because whenever you go near them, they stick their little butts up in the air. I don't know what that's all about, but it's actually very funny. But just a great plant, and that's just a close-up of the actual flowers on the full sunflower. The petals are not the actual flower when it comes to plants in the aster family. It's that center disc where all those hundreds of flowers are. The petals are just fancy, and that's what brings everybody in as a landing pad. Blue flag iris. This is one of the ones I showed earlier too in the beginning picture with the bumblebee in it. This is just a little silver spotted skipper in there. But blue flag iris is fantastic. It doesn't need to be in wet soil. It actually can grow in very average garden soil. She is salt tolerant and clay tolerant, and she does tolerate some drought. Mine were always beautiful, but now I have a deer, and just as she's about to bloom, she comes in and eats them. But she is a host plant to about 13 different species for moths and caterpillars, but just a great plant. And unlike some of the hybrid irises that just have like one flower, if you look closely on this, you can see all the seed pods on her. One stem usually has anywhere from 6 to 8 flowers on it, which is just amazing. And she blooms for a decent amount of time. And when you're growing them from seed, they can actually be that violet purple, lavender, or white. And also, most people don't realize this, but they may cause contact dermatitis. So just keep that in mind when you're actually handling them. I've never had a problem, but that doesn't mean anything. If you're looking for a smaller iris, you can go with Iris prismatica, which is about 12 to 18 inches tall and takes the same exact conditions. Monarda punctata. So this is this Dr. Seuss plant. This is one of my absolute favorite plants. She loves dry, average soil. And in just the amount of pollinators this brings in, I could do a whole talk just on this plant and its pollinators. In the bottom there, you have the spider wasp again. In the top picture there, you have a female carpenter bee. Black walnut tolerant, so she'd be good towards the outskirts of the drip line of the tree. But just an amazing plant. And again, hummingbirds absolutely love her. The flower is actually not the pink bracts that are coming off there, but if you see the cream colored flower with the little purple dots, that's the flower. So she's showy on so many levels, and she smells divine. She has that good, nice Monarda smell. But just a lovely plant, drought tolerant, like I said, and just a great plant. If you're looking for something fun, especially for a children's garden, this is a great plant to put in. Pycnanthemum, you could do I could do a whole talk on just pycnanthemums. So this is threadleaf mountain mint. Mountain mints are fantastic for pollinators. In my world, you can never have enough mountain mint. They're great in salads also. You can use them just like you would use European mints, but they're not invasive like European mints are. She does prefer full sun, but she will take a little shade. Clay tolerant. This one and all our mountain mints are fantastic in planters. I like this one because she kind of has a floppy habit, but not floppy in a bad way. It makes her work really well in the front of a garden. And just her really delicate textured foliage. She doesn't have thick foliage like other mountain mints. She's got that fine texture to her, but just a lovely plant. She's a host plant to the gray hair streak and the wavy lined emerald moth. So the wavy lined emerald moth, I really need to get a picture this year of them. They're caterpillars, kind of like an inchworm, and you don't usually notice them because they're so small, first of all, but how they camouflage themselves is really amusing. They take little pieces of the petals of the flower they're on and stick it to their body. And that's how they camouflage themselves. And when the flowers on them dry, they take them off and put new ones on. So I just think that's the coolest thing ever. And when you do cut, they're generalists, so you will see them on a lot of different plants. So if you're watching a plant and you're like, why is that petal moving like that? It's usually the wavy lined emerald caterpillar. The fly in this picture, it's not a wasp, it's a fly. This is the Midas fly, and she is one of the largest flies that I usually get in my yard. She's usually about 2 inches long, but just an interesting creature. She actually eats other wasps. That's why, again, like I said, she's mimicking a wasp because, first of all, to keep prey away from her, but also so she can blend in. I was able to watch one this year. Actually, I had a grass wasp who was building nests, And this one was just sitting on another plant, and like every once in a while she'd go up and hit it. She never got it, but she kept trying pretty hard. But it's just really interesting what goes on there in the world of insects. But just a great plant. Viola labradorica. So this is one of our violets. So violets are actually the only plant that fritillary butterflies go to. So without violets, we don't have fritillary butterflies. So this is not one you would find in your lawn. This one's actually really great for a part shade area. It'll even take a good amount of shade, but it would also take sun. What I love about this one is the foliage color is just absolutely amazing. It's a lovely purple with just a hint of silver, and the flowers are just these adorable little dainty purple things. They're adorable. If you know this plant, it's just lovely. And if you don't know this plant, you need to get to know it. She's not invasive like, well, not that she'd be invasive, but she's not going to crowd anybody out where she is. She will put herself where she wants to be, but just a lovely plant. Like I said, the color combination is just great. And also this little mining bee in the corner here, which is Adrena violet, it's the only bee that goes to violets. Like it's named after violets because it's its only plant that it goes to. I think that's just amazing when something like that happens, but just a lovely little plant. Again, black walnut tolerant, and also clay tolerant. Viola sororia. So this is the one everybody has in their lawns if you still have a lawn. I'm not going to shame you. Great little plant, very underutilized. This can be eaten. It's great in salads, and you can cook the greens, and the flowers can be made into candies and jellies. I actually have a friend out east who does that to them, and it's just absolutely amazing. Great in a planter. So when you go walking by your neighbor's house and he's pulling them out, take them and put them in a planter or put them in your yard. Again, that specialist bee to viola is this one again. And again, this is also one of the only, the violets that the fritillary butterflies actually go to. But just an amazing little plant. She makes a great ground cover. And what's fun is in the late summer, early fall, she has what are called false flowers at the bottom, and those are seed pods. And when her seeds are ready to go, she just spits them out. So that's how they get around. And it's just amazing. And also ants will move them around because they like the coating on them. But just great plants, our little violets. And like I said, they're underused and they get a bad rap because of lawns, but just a great plant on so many levels. So just a couple of ferns and sedges. So I have Carex pennsylvanica in here because it's actually one of my favorite plants. She just grows naturally in my yard. Sedges are great, especially this one. Some people call it Pennsylvania sedge. I call her oak sedge. And the reason why she's oak sedge is because she grows very well under oaks. So for those of you trying to grow a lawn under your shady oaks, this is what you should have under there. She does handle a little foot traffic, and she gets these adorable little, we'll call them flowers. But she does bring pollinators in. She is host plant for 36 species of caterpillars, and most of them are brushfoot butterflies, like the one you see here. This is our question mark butterfly. One of their other host plants is common hackberries, but just a great plant all around. You don't remove last year's foliage because whatever dries there is actually used by the birds, especially robins, for their nesting material. So it's a lot of fun when you look outside and there's a robin fighting, trying to get the old foliage off. Absolutely deer resistant. We can say that because it's a sedge, and also really good in a planter. But like I said, semi-evergreen, she does keep a little bit of green, but most of the time most of it dies back. But just a great plant for shady spaces. And if you have a shady garden, she looks beautiful. Her texture is just so fine, especially next to like larger leaf shade plants. But just a great plant all around. So I definitely recommend these. Polysticum acrosticoides. Boy, I can't speak now. Christmas fern. So Christmas fern gets her name because the colonists actually used to use the fronds for Christmas decoration because it was green at Christmas. Fantastic plant. This is one of my favorites because I have very dry soil here, and this is one of the ferns that will actually take dry shade. That's just, to me, that's unbelievable. She is deer and rabbit resistant because she is a fern. Most people don't understand ferns. They think they're very delicate. Some of them are, but most of them are some of the toughest plants you'll ever come across. And actually, they've been around for a very, very long time. So people say, what is the point of them? Well, the point of a fern is actually, to me, I think, they're excellent ground cover for small wildlife, especially the ones that run, which we'll get to next. But even this one, you know, I have rabbits that like to hide in them. My frogs love being in there. I mean, anything that can, you know, it's just great shelter for them, just, you know, from whatever else is around, but just such great plants. And these don't run. Christmas fern is a clumper, so her clumps are just going to get bigger. She's not going to run under the soil like others do, but just an excellent plant for that dry, shady spot. Then we have royal fern. Royal fern is just a magnificent, beautiful plant. She is native here, but if you do actually do some research on her, you will find she is actually on 7 continents, which is very interesting. But what a beautiful plant. You can actually tell her by her fronds in the middle that come out and also that dark purple black stem. It's just a beautiful fern. I have this in the planter that doesn't have any drainage holes in it, along with the turtle head. I have hay-scented fern, I have royal fern, and then I have common rush all in one pot, and they're playing wonderfully. The hay-scented fern's getting a little rambunctious now, so I might have to move it out, but just a fantastic, really, I mean, it's regal looking. It's a beautiful fern. She does prefer moist to wet soil. She does not like to dry out. And again, deer and rabbit resistant. She can get 36 to 72 inches. Again, there's that weird big difference between numbers. So if it is on the drier side where it's just moist or average, she's going to stay on the shorter side. If she's happy and getting everything she wants, she will get a little taller. But just an absolute beautiful fern. So as I said, there's so many plants and not enough time. So I just had to throw a couple more in that we're offering. Some Phaeotrichum nova anglii, which is our New England aster. Here's that weird number. They get 36 to 72 inches tall. They are a keystone plant, which I mentioned earlier, which means that they are necessary for other animals to finish their life cycle. Like the caterpillars feed the birds, and without the caterpillars and the birds, we wouldn't have new birds because there wouldn't be any caterpillars for them. But just a great plant. So our New England aster actually hosts 100 caterpillars. She is a fall bloomer. I don't know if I mentioned this, but fall bloomers can be cut back at July 4th. This way, you can cut them back by 2/3, you can cut them back by a half. It just depends on how you want to do it. There's really no set way. But if you do cut them back, again, like I said, you would get more flowers and a tidier plant. It won't be 72 inches. But the fact is you'll get more flowers. And when you get more flowers, that means you're going to have more nectar and more pollen for our critters. She's also very important because she is a late season bloomer, and she is great for the monarch butterflies who need that nectar to make that long journey. Our other one here, this is Quercus montana, which is chestnut oak. It is native to the mid and southeastern US, but as we all know, our climate is changing and it can handle the heat and humidity. So for time coming, you know, for what we're going into, this is an absolutely fantastic oak tree to have. The leaves are beautiful. She almost looks like a beech tree, but like chestnut is what she looks like. But just a lovely tree. She can get 60 to 70 feet tall. Of course, it's going to take time, but all Quercus, 400 plus caterpillars, the oaks actually support, and they're our #1 keystone plant. Helianthus angustifolius, This is another fantastic plant. This is our swamp sunflower. It can get up to 8 feet tall and it's just magnificent. So if you have the room, get one of these in. She brings in 50 pollen specialist bees. That should say pollen, not pollinator. That means she's bringing in 50 different little bees that only go to her. So that is just amazing. And also 60 plus caterpillars. Oh, look, I spelled caterpillars wrong. 60 plus caterpillars, but just an absolutely beautiful plant. They do take a little shade. They prefer sun. Our helianth, there's several other ones also, but just a magnificent plant when it comes to wildlife. And the last one there, that's our Prunus maritima. That's our beach plum, where you get lovely beach plum jelly from. She does, if she is growing in seaside conditions, she usually stays around 8 feet as a shrub because the wind keeps her shorter. But if you are growing her in a residential setting, she can get to be about 30 feet plus more than that. So, but what a magnificent plant. Just absolutely, if you come across them, they're just such a magnificent plant, and they host 300 plus caterpillars. So by choosing native plants for your garden, you are not just creating a beautiful space, you are contributing to a healthier environment. And I just have a little video here because these are my favorite little creatures. So that's our little ground bee that I was talking about earlier. That's the little female in her little hole. So everybody, if you have bare spots in your lawn or in your yard, you're going to have these adorable, docile little creatures. Cellophane bees are just magnificent, and they're just one of the pluses of springtime. To me, that means spring is here, even if they are a little early. In the top corner there, I just have a male carpenter bee, another skipper, a lovely little tree frog, and a hummingbird who actually stopped to let me take her picture. So that's all I have. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
We have some questions right here.
Sure.
Okay. I think this was regarding the pussy willow. Someone has asked about how close is too close to a water source?
It's a good question. They do have a root system that will travel to look. I would say, that's a good one. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I'm not going to lie. But I would keep them at least, I wouldn't even put them near an irrigation line. I would say keep them at least 30 feet away, at least, like I said, because they will seek it out.
Basically, not take chances.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, and they're also, they do take a lot of space too, even if you do keep her as a shrub. You could go, I would say, like I said, if you're going to go for one for the yard, I would say go for the prairie willow. Like I said, pussy willow is great, but you do need space for her because, like I said, you don't want her going to your, because they will seek out, like I said, cesspools because there's water in them. So you just have to be careful with that. So if you have a big enough space, I would say at least do like 30 feet away, 20 to 30 in that area.
Can I ask a question
Sure,
about pussy willows? So in arrangement, I got this, which is a really unusual dark pussy willow.
Japanese.
Is it? Oh, I'm so sad.
It's gorgeous though, right? We were at Bayard this past Sunday, and they have the Japanese one there, and it's so showy. It's not an invasive plant. Like I said, I would consider that a responsible ornamental. But yeah, it's a spectacular pussy toe on there. They're so ornamental. But yeah.
And the other thing is the grower, who is you might know Nerdling Farm Acres. They're a very small flower stand and flower grower. They said that didn't know if this was native or not because pussy willows are promiscuous.
I know oaks are. Actually, hold it up again.
Can you unpack that? Promiscuous pussy willows?
Interesting. That's a little disturbing. Can you hold her up again? She might be, are they forcing them there at the farm? Did you get it from them?
I got it from them. They're not forcing them. I think that grows, and she says she's had it for many, many years. Let me see if I can put
Yeah, I'm just
something white behind
most
it.
likely because of that dark center like that, most likely Japanese. But if they're forcing them, they would be a little
They're
less.
not. I
They're
think
not.
they're just they. I don't think so because
I
she
think
says
it's
that it's
Japanese,
an
even with
old
the
stem
color
that
of
she
the
had.
stem. Yeah, the color of the stem is also really light, and ours isn't that light,
Right.
but it is
Well,
beautiful.
I have a few that rooted, and I guess I will be responsible and don't tell anybody.
I don't plant shame anybody.
I'll move on to another question from the chat here. Someone wants to know if there are blueberry bushes that don't need full sun.
Actually, all of them. Our high bush and our low bush, if you go into the woods, especially out in Riverhead by the cranberry bog, they all grow on the edge of the woods. So they do prefer for berry yield, you're best with full sun, but they can do part shade. And if you, like I said, if you're in the Pine Barrens, you'll even see, excuse me, low bush blueberry basically in full shade. Does it flower and berry in there? No, but it's what it's doing in there is it's supporting uh, as a host plant. So that's what it's doing in there. But they're very adaptable. But if you are looking to have a high berry yield, you would want to put them in the sun.
Right. And I think this you have might probably already have answered. She also wants to know if there are any shade natives a possibility. So I think we covered a lot of shade
Yeah,
natives.
there's a lot. Yeah, I tried to get a lot of like a mix of everything in there.
Yeah.
I didn't put it in there because it is very common. Cardinal flower is great for shade. Um, Great blue lobelia is also, like I said, I could have done like every plant we're selling, but we'd be here for days. There's a lot of really good shade plants, especially when it comes to native plants. But the lobelias will both take shade. Um, I'm trying to think who else. The white and blue wood asters will take shade. Um, there's many ferns that'll work in there. I'm trying to think like
I think
Hasten.
your oak sedge is also shade.
Oak sedge, yeah, all of like most of your sedges will take shade. I mean there's a lot. There is actually the Kiloni, which was the turtle head. She will actually take part shade. You just need to keep she'll take full sun and part shade. You just got to keep that soil moist. What else is it? Geraniums for the shade, our native geraniums. Geranium maculatum will work for the shade. Who else will work for the shade? I said your caryxes. I'm just trying to think of my own yard, who else I have in the shade. A lot of our shrubs will tolerate shade. Like I said, the serviceberry will tolerate it. The American hornbeam tolerates full shade. Button bush will actually take part shade if you have like on the edge of a woodland. Who else? Let's see, what else do I have growing in there? I was just thinking, winterberry will take a little shade. Um, Inkberry will take a little shade. There are a lot of shade plants for if you're going for native plants. There's really a lot.
Someone suggested red columbine.
Oh, yep, that Aquilegia canadensis. Yep, like I said, there's a lot that'll actually take full shade.
Yeah. We have another question regarding your beach plum. Does the beach plum need a pollinator?
Yes. So they will produce berries, not berries, they will produce plums by themselves, but you're better off with a second one. The thing is, if you get a second one, it can't be a clone of the first, so that doesn't work. So if you buy a beach plum this year, wait till next year to get your next one, because that's going to be different stock. Most of them are actually clones of each other, unless you're growing them from seed, which I do know someone who does it. So if I have those who's growing them from seed, I would tell you these are the ones you can actually buy several of them. But if you're getting them as a larger plant, most likely they've been grown out from a large plug. But yeah, seed grown you can do, but if you're getting ones that are cloned, they don't work for pollination.
Thank you, because as a matter of fact, we are going to buy beach plums, so that's a good tip. We
Yes.
will get
And they're actually the ones we're selling are grown from seed.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Also, regarding the shade plants, if you go on my website, KMS Native Plants, I have a blog in there actually just for shade plants and also for ones that are growing under black walnuts.
Perfect. Another question regarding beach plum is, will beach plum pollinate by American plum?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that one, honestly. I'm getting American plums in, so um, it's possible, but like I said, I don't know that answer. Hmm, that's a good question. Actually, I'm going to write that down, and we're going to see if we can find that answer. American plum. I'm going to say most likely not, but you never know. And Prunus maritima. Yeah, I will have to get back on that one.
Another question regarding pussy willow. What does it mean that they seek out or go to the water source?
It means that their roots go to the water source and basically it causes a lot of trouble. You don't want her seeking her roots into your cesspool. They can crack a pipe. That's like I said, they will seek it out. That's how aggressive they become with looking for water. Yeah, so that's like I said, you don't want them near any kind of water source. Like you don't want them near your sprinkler heads. You don't want them near your cesspool. Anywhere where there's pipes or like water that, like I said, you don't want them close to the house either because if your wall, I guess your basement walls are moist, they're gonna go for that. That's what it means. Like I said, it's just basically you don't want to near any kind of pipes, any cesspool because it's gonna cause a serious problem.
We don't have any questions, but you have some compliments,
Yeah.
wonderful photographs, fantastic presentation.
Oh, and most of the pictures are mine. So if they aren't mine, I do note it too. So yeah, I've taken all the pictures. But thank you. Yeah, I'm
Thank
just
you, Kimberly. So, I mean, thanks for the lovely presentation. I got some good notes here with me.
Yeah, and if anybody has questions, this is the time of year to ask me because it's still kind of quiet. So you can either contact me through ReWild, Kimberly at rewildlongisland.org, or you can contact me through kmsnativeplants@gmail.com. And I always answer my emails, even if it's late at night, I do answer all of them.
Is your nursery open yet?
No, I had someone show up today. No, I technically open mid-April, depending on the weather. I haven't even done anything yet. I have to get the wood chips in to cover the ground in there. But usually, I mean, I'm technically open, let's say, like I said, I think what is this, March? So usually I'm open. So this year I'm going to be opening on the 18th. So that's a Thursday. But I am also going to be open Monday and Wednesday for the spring this year. So there'll be 6 days as opposed to just the 4 that it usually is. It's getting a little busy, so I want to break it up. So hopefully it'll take a little of the busyness from the weekend onto the days. So I'll be here. All the information's on my website also. If you go to that, www.kmsnativeplants.com, everything's on there. And once I do open, I do have a running list of what's here and how many of what I have is here. And I am also, I have a pre-order sale going on that ends on St. Patty's Day, which is Sunday. And if you pre-order, you get 15% off your order. Perfect. Which actually, if you're a ReWild member, you also get 15% off anyway.
And we have the spring native plant sale coming up as well.
Absolutely. And that is the way to buy plants. So if you're looking to try native plants, that's the way to do it. Especially plugs are just great plants. And especially with the natives, because most native plants don't do that sleep, creep, and leap. They usually bloom the first year. So they're spectacular, and ReWild is just awesome. So order your plants there.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I'm also I'm a distribution site too, so you can choose to pick up your plants here.
Thank you again, Kimberly, for the lovely presentation.
Thank you, everybody. I love doing it. Like I said, if you have any questions, please ask.